Interesting piece out of the New York Times breaking down the struggles that Vice President Kamala Harris is having and the way that the Biden administration has kind of interfaced with those struggles. And I've definitely noticed this. It's so interesting because when she first announced her run for president back in 2019, whenever it was, maybe even probably 2019. Yeah. And she was running for president, Democratic primary. I found her very impressive, at least as a politician, her political skills and stuff like that. As with everyone, plenty of disagreements, but just kind of as a political figure. And then as the campaign went on, and especially once she became vice president, a lot of the optical stuff seemed to fall apart, where a lot of kind of embarrassing moments took place, and her polling has been pretty poor the entire time that she's been vice president. And I actually don't have the strong negative view of Kamala Harris that a lot of the left does. And I don't find her in interviews and stuff as cringy, I guess, as a lot of the left makes her out to be. But clearly a lot of people don't love her as a vice president because her polling isn't great and because this type of reporting is coming out. And it fascinates me because the best situation for the Democratic Party would have been, especially with Biden as a relatively not super popular president and still getting a lot of things done, a lot of accomplishments, that would have set up his vice president nicely to run and say, I did that too, and now I'm going to continue with those successes, but maybe in a more youthful, sharper figures reality, right? And so it could have been a nice situation, but Kamala Harris doesn't seem to be fulfilling that obvious role of someone who could be next after Biden. And she's rarely floated as a really good candidate if Biden decided not to run for re-election, which is odd because he's gotten a lot of things done. She's the vice president. He doesn't have great polling as far as people wanting him to run for re-election. You would think the vice president would be in a good situation there, but she's not. And it fascinates me. So here from the New York Times, Kamala Harris is trying to define her vice presidency. Even her allies are tired of waiting. Kamala Harris was frustrated. The text of a speech she had been given to deliver in Chicago to the nation's biggest teachers union was just another dreary scripted talk that said little of any consequence. And I want to note early, in case this is in y'all's, bouncing around your head while I'm talking about this, I 100% recognize and think part of the reason why other people find her less likable than I do is because a lot of people do have that kind of harsher judgment towards the appearance, towards the communication style of women. I think that's absolutely at play here. If she was very similar to how she is now, but a male vice president, I do think people would have a different view of her. And that highlights one of the issues we're still dealing with in our country. But regardless of the reason, it's still a phenomenon that I think matters to discuss and understand why she's having a difficult time. That could be part of the reason. And so then this article, just to kind of summarize so we can skip through a little bit of it, goes through how she, at this teachers union speech in front of educators, wanted to strike a little bit more of an impressive tone, not just another, as it said, dreary speech. And she did, in kind of the hour before she landed, before that speech, rewrote one to be a little bit more impactful. And that is an anecdote being shared to show that her and her team are kind of struggling with this fact that she feels to be just in the shadows and wants to make a little bit more of an impact. And she's also interacting with the fact that she's made history in numerous ways based on her identity, but wants more than that, of course, and wants to have a legacy beyond that. To me, let's not think about our legacy so much. Let's keep thinking about what can be happening now, what we can, the change we can make occur today, and then let the legacy be told. But it is something politicians are often very concerned with. And it talks about other anecdotes, and then we'll get to here. But the painful reality for Ms. Harris is that in private conversations over the last few months, dozens of Democrats in the White House, on Capitol Hill, and around the nation, including some who helped put her on the party's 2020 ticket, said she had not risen to the challenge of proving herself as a future leader of the party, much less the country. Even some Democrats, whom her advisors referred reporters to for supportive quotes, confided privately that they had lost hope in her. Though much of the fall, a quiet panic set in among key Democrats about what would happen if President Biden opted not to run for a second term. Most Democrats interviewed, who insisted on anonymity to avoid alienating the White House, said flatly they did not think Ms. Harris could win the presidency in 2021. Some said the party's biggest challenge would be finding a way to sideline her without inflaming key Democratic constituencies that would take offense. Let me do a quick water break. Flying through this, and I spilled some on my desk. Beautiful. Moving forward, now with Mr. Biden appearing all but certain to run again, the concern over Ms. Harris has shifted to whether she will be a political liability for the ticket. Given that Mr. Biden at 80 is already the oldest president in American history, Republicans would most likely make Ms. Harris, who is 58, a prime attack line, arguing that a vote for Mr. Biden may in fact be a vote to put her in the Oval Office. And we should have a little bit more. Quote, "That will be, in my opinion, one of the most hard-hitting arguments against Biden," said John Morgan, a prominent fundraiser for Democrats, including Mr. Biden and a former Florida finance chairman for President Bill Clinton. "It doesn't make a genius to say, look, with his age, we have to really think about this. So far, he said she has not distinguished herself. Some 39% of Americans approve of Ms. Harris's job performance, according to a recent aggregate of surveys compiled by the polling site 538, and that puts her below Biden's poll numbers." So this article goes on. We can't discuss every element of it, but this matters. And I do think, since it seems pretty obvious Biden is indeed running for re-election, and all the reporting that I've seen makes that pretty clear, when you're the age of Biden, the voters are going to care more about the vice president, because there's a larger percentage chance that the vice president will become president at some point during that term. And so I recognize the importance of that vice presidential position. And because there's a lot of doubt about Kamala Harris, you recognize for sure why people are speculating, how could we move her aside? But it would look real bad. It would look really, really bad if that indeed happened, because it would seem to be kind of a White House in shambles, right? Doubt about the general success of the vice president, and that reflects poorly on the presidential candidate. So it'll be fascinating to watch how this all moves forward and how the White House decides to maneuver this. But I think part of the blame is on Biden and his team, because it seems they've not allowed Kamala Harris to be put in positions and optically set in a way that would let her shine. And again, this isn't just me trying to, you can see the water on my desk. Sorry, guys. We got water there and now water here. It's not just because, oh, be nice to Kamala Harris for no reason. It's because this is going to make a difference in the success of the Democratic Party. And you want a strong vice president, especially because the vice president will matter more in the presidential strength because of how old Biden will be. And I don't think they've given her public responsibilities that would make her look good, that she could thrive in. And it seems to be they kind of are allowing her to drift into the shadows. Again, this isn't just me, I want to help Kamala Harris so much. It's from a strategy point of view, because we don't want the Democratic Party to lose to the Republican Party, the damage that could do. How could they maneuver her in a way that lets the public see her in a better light than they're seeing her right now? Let me know what you think of all of this. Luke P. Beasley on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the full bonus show every single Saturday, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley. Link in the description.